Hello and welcome to Rust Locker, and yes, I'm still out here working on the Civic Aerodeck. In this video I'm going to be replacing the alternator. Although it does still work, does still charge the battery, I noticed that the bearing is making quite a lot of noise, which makes the whole engine sound rough, but that's where most of the noise is coming from. So I think if I change the alternator, that is going to improve the engine sound quite a bit. So hopefully you're going to join me for this video, and let's crack on and get outside and start working. So I don't know if you can hear very well on the camera, but from this side of the engine it just sounds like a normal running engine, but when you get down there where the alternator is, that's where you can hear there's a lot of nasty noise there. So I can't quite get my hand down in there. But from under the engine, you can get to the alternator a bit better, although I can't pull it out from this direction, so it's going to have to come out of the top. Okay, so I'm just going to start with trying to get a bit of clearance here. I can pull this hose out of the clip maybe. Okay. Hasn't done much. Okay, I'm going to disconnect the battery because I'm messing with the alternator, and that also might be able to allow me to get my hand in there. Okay, I'm going to take the battery tray out as well because there's two bolts down the bottom there, and this might give me a bit more room as well. Right, I undone the 3 bolts that hold the battery tray down, but there's a cable tie holding the cable there. Good job it's all coming out. All needs a good clean behind there. If I remember to clean behind there. Okay, got a bit of a gap now. Whether I'll be able to pull the alternator out through here, I don't know. Okay, I can't actually get any of these plugs undone, but there was another bolt just down there that I undid, and then that holds the rest of this to the alternator mounting point. So now that I've got that up, I can get to that bolt there, and that's the first one I've got to undo for the alternator. Okay, that's loose. Okay, I'm under the car now, and there's another bolt just up in there. I don't know if you can see it. But I've undone that. That's at the bottom of the alternator. So now both bolts are loose. I should be able to move it forward. Okay, so if I get behind the alternator, give it a push. Okay. Okay, the belt here is nice and loose now, so I can slip that off. And it was on the closest one to the engine block. I assume the outer one is for aircon maybe, which is why I don't have a belt on there, because I don't have aircon in this car. Okay, you can't really see down there, but I can't get the belt off of the main crank pulley because it's on behind the power steering belt here. So I'm going to have to take the power steering belt off to get the alternator belt off. So I'm going to have to loosen the bolt there for the power steering pump so that I can get that off. That's the power steering belt. And then we have the alternator belt. And looking at this, it's pretty crusty. Lots of splits in there, look. Probably wouldn't have lasted much longer. So obviously I've got a new belt as well, I'm going to be putting that on. Now you can't see very well in the car because obviously there's not a lot of space, but on the back of the new one here you can see that there's something that plugs in on the back there, and probably a ground here that goes over that bolt there. So there's going to be at least two things to unplug from the existing one. So yeah, that one there at the top. Oh no. Okay, that one at the top looks like there's going to be the ground then. And that one in at the back needs to be undone. And it looks like there's a cable attached to it as well. So I'm going to have to undo those and unplug those. Okay, so that's one done. If you can see, right there, and managed to get the plug out from the side. Okay, so I think if I just undo the bottom bolt all the way now, and then undo the top bolt, pull it out, should be alright. Okay, so that's the bottom bolt out, got that plug out. Right, managed to unclip all the wires from it. I've undone the bottom bolt, so I just need to undo this top bolt here and then somehow get it out through this mess of wires and pipes. Okay, now I've got some other problems going on here. If I could move these pipes, but they're all rigid. Essentially, I've got to get that alternator up through this gap here, but those pipes there are rigid like brake lines. So I don't want to bend them much. I think it's just going to be a case of jiggling it and wiggling it for a while. Definitely every little helps. Problem is it's so heavy, you can't lift it with one hand and remove wires. Okay, I wasn't filming it because you couldn't really see much, but after a lot of wiggling and getting it the right way round, finally managed to get the bastard out. Okay, I'm going to strike while the iron is hot and try and get this in that gap whilst I kind of remember the way. Okay, that went in a lot easier. Right, so we're in there now, and I've just got to sort of wiggle it up and get it into that first bolt hole underneath. Okay. Ah, yeah. Right, so I've got the bottom bolt put in there, so I'm going to do the plugs up, I think, and get the top bolt in next. So this one at the back here seems to be where the ground goes. Right there. Okay, put the cap back over. Okay, the next plug on the side, you can't see it, but I can just about see it. Okay, it's in there. I've got to get the adjuster bolt in down there somewhere. Okay, so I've got the adjustment bolt in here just about with my fingertips. Yeah, that's it. So I'm going to do it up quite a bit, but leave it loose still, obviously, because I've got to get the belt on yet. Okay, well anyway, so I'm going to finish getting that in, tighten up this one down here, which I didn't need to undo, reattach the brackets and the hoses together. Got to reattach this back onto there. But before I do that, I think I'll get the belt on, or the belts back on, and then I can sort of tension this up in a minute. Okay, it's a bit of a faff, but I think I managed to get that alternator belt on. So pull the alternator back as far as it will go, and then do up this bolt, and then that should be tight. Right, so I managed to thread the power steering belt back on now. I've got, obviously I had to do the alternator belt first because that goes closest to the engine, then the power steering belt afterwards. I need a new power steering belt because this one's crusty. I should have bought another one as well, but I'll do that another time, it's not as difficult. Tighten up these two bolts. And the power steering belt is back on. Okay, so the belts are on and the bolts are tight. All I've got to do is put back all this pipework into the clips and bolt this bracket back down here. Before I put all the battery stuff back in though, I'm going to clean out this little well here. Obviously I'm not going to go too mad with water and stuff because the electronics for the alternator are down there. You don't want to get water in the alternator at all, so I'm just going to use wipes and maybe a bit of spray and kitchen roll. Just going to wipe this down, get it a bit cleaner before I put the battery back in. Okay, so I've got the battery tray and the battery in now. I think everything's buttoned up, all the pipes are back, stuffed into their little brackets. Put a new cable tie down here on this cable. Thought I was about done, and then I went over to the old alternator and realised I've forgotten to take this little bracket off and fit it to mine. So I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to still do that underneath the car in a sec. So I still need to do that, but other than that, I think everything's all buttoned up. I've cleaned this area, and this corner of the engine bay is looking a lot better. It's taken all of that to do that. So I'm going to get under the car now and try and fit that little bracket. So not only do I have to take the bracket off, I've also got to remove this pin thing out of it as well, because my alternator just has a hole there, so I'm assuming that I've got to screw this in. Okay, so up there, up in there, is where this needs to go, I think. Okay, I managed to get that screw pin thing in, and it was a right nightmare because there was actually already a screw in there which I had to undo before I could get that in, but that's in now, so I'll attach the bracket. I wanted to make sure I did do it because this wire is bracketed to the alternator there, which keeps it off of the oil filter, so I didn't want this leaning against the oil filter getting hot and possibly melting, I don't know, so I couldn't really ignore it, so I went through the ordeal of trying to remove a screw from there and screw that pin in, but we're getting there. Right, so I've got a new cable tie put in there, so that's off of the oil filter there, so now I think we are actually done. Right, so as you can tell, it's a hell of a lot quieter over in this corner. It's actually this power steering pump, I think, is now making a bit of a noise, and then the loose heat shields obviously, but that is a lot better. So I hope you'll agree that's made a hell of a difference, and if you've liked this video, give me a thumbs up, make sure you subscribe if you haven't already subscribed, and I'll catch you on the next one.